Welcome to this week's legislative update from Kansans for Life. My name is Mackenzie Haddix, and I'm here to bring you the latest pro-life news from Topeka. Last week was a busy but positive one as two of our bills were passed out of committee and now head to the full House chamber for consideration. The first bill, House Bill 2313, would create the Kansas Born Alive Infants Protection Act, and it would provide legal protections for infants who are born alive regardless of the intent of delivery. Particularly, infants born alive after an attempted abortion would be granted legal protections. The hearing began with powerful testimony from Dr. Representative Ron Bryce, who shared a story about his time in his medical residency, where he was summoned to a Code Blue operating room to provide care for a baby who was born alive after an attempted abortion. Let's listen into some of his testimony.
To illustrate that. Several years ago, as a medical resident on duty at an NICU in a county hospital, I was summoned to an operating room for a Code Blue. Most of the time, a Code Blue is initiated when someone has a heart attack, cardiac arrest, some life-threatening condition. So I was summoned to a Code Blue in the surgical suite, so I didn't know what to expect. When I arrived in the surgical suite, the surgeon was still fully gowned. No one was active. The young lady patient was in no distress, and no one would tell me why I was summoned for a Code Blue. And then I heard a cry from the corner of the operating room. And there on a metal table in the corner of the operating room was a premature baby boy. This baby had accomplished the seemingly impossible. He survived his abortion. Though strong enough to temporarily live outside the womb, he was too young to survive for very long after being separated from his mother. At the time, I'd been a physician for only a few years, and I'd seen a few aborted fetuses who still had a heartbeat, but this infant wasn't lying limp like the others. He was moving his arms and legs, and he was crying. I picked him up in my arms, carried him to the NICU when it became obvious he was too tough to die quickly. The attendants there placed him under a heating lamp for warmth in his NICU baby bed. As I stared down on his frail body, I had the impression that the entire universe was revolving around this one human being at that point in my life. I wrote routine admission orders for NICU, but this was clearly not a routine admission. Over several hours, as his breathing became more labored, he grimaced several times, evidence of a struggle with something he had no ability to comprehend. While I could see him, he could not see me. He would never know me, but I would always remember him. And I, at that point, thought at some point his short life might be worth something. And I hope today that perhaps it's serving a purpose. Eventually, though he was no longer breathing, his heartbeat continued. It's not unusual for a baby's heartbeat to continue after they're all in all other ways dead and not breathing because of just the nature of the heart. Because of irreversible brain damage he had sustained due to lack of oxygen, I pronounced him dead. As this case clearly illustrates, abortion takes the life of a child. But what if the baby is too tough to die quickly? What are the options for the abortion provider? There are three. Number one, treat the baby as you would any other living baby of gestational age. Doesn't mean you have to do heroic measures for a baby that has no chance of survival, but we need to treat them as a human being. Number two, as in this case that I was, the abortion provider set the baby aside to die, but the baby would not die quickly, so the nurses finally called a Code Blue. That's why I was summoned to the operating room. The third option, God forbid, is actively killing the baby. Those are the three options for an abortion provider. Of those three options, this House Bill 2313 would provide only one lawful option for the abortion provider, and that is to treat the living baby as you would any other living baby in that situation at that gestational age. Madam Chair, we are a moral people. We believe that those that are weakest among us and those that are powerless among us and those most innocent among us should be protected and cared for to the best of our ability.
Next, legislators heard from KFL's very own Jeannie Godden, Director of Government Relations for Kansans for Life. Let's take a
Surely
listen.
we can all agree that a child who survives an abortion deserves the same health care as any other child born alive at the same gestational age.
Legislators were also provided written and oral testimony from 2 abortion survivors. They also heard from Dr. Kelly Bird, a pediatrician in the Kansas City area.
There's always an appropriate care that can be given. An adult who has a life-limiting illness or disease, it's not like we throw up our hands and walk out of the room. We're asking for the same for these infants.
Although every single Democrat on the committee voted against this common sense legislation, it did pass out of committee and now heads to the full House chamber for consideration. We'll keep you updated on any actions you can be taking to encourage your representative to vote yes on this life-saving measure. In addition to this great news, House Bill 2429 also passed favorably out of committee and heads to the House for a vote in front of the body. House Bill 2429 would enact the Alternatives to Abortion program. This program would serve as a statewide program to enhance and increase resources that promote life instead of abortion to women facing unplanned pregnancies. Our team at Kansans for Life is working tirelessly to pass all sorts of legislation that would protect life here in Kansas. We are so grateful for your support. Please contact us if you have any questions, and we look forward to seeing you next week.